Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of Horror with Nadia. And today is a really special episode. I have on Sam Stefanak, and I know he's laughing backstage with me, the writer from Woman in the Yard, which I saw this past weekend to talk about it. But before we get into all that, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and helping me hit 1K subs. With that all out of the way, there is also an area that if you're watching, you can submit questions for Sam, and that's about it. So let's bring him on. Oh, nobody can see you because I always have technical. Hello, Sam. How are you?
I heard that you just got the name correct.
I know. It's
little stutter.
A little bit of Nadia lore. I'm so bad with names. It's just.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me on. This is so cool. I'm a fan of the show. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for joining me. I was very excited that you responded to my DM about coming on for Woman in the Yard. It was a movie that I was really looking forward to at the beginning of this year, especially after seeing the teaser and the trailer. Really vibed with it. So happy to say I really enjoyed it. I was very surprised. Blumhouse has not been hitting it for me, so that was really cool.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. I think some people have been saying it's not your traditional Blumhouse movie, and I think
yes.
I find that an interesting thing to discuss. Tell me more. I just out of curiosity.
So Blumhouse to me lately has been very much it felt very much like straight to VHS back in the day type of horror movies. I'll never forgive them for Night Swim. Which was just sometimes a short should be a short, doesn't need to be a full-length movie. So I have not been happy with Blumhouse, but for some reason I think there's actually depth to Woman in the Yard. There was a story. It wasn't just like a slasher or schlock just to put on the screen. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it surprised me. And my husband, who's not a horror fan, really enjoyed it as well.
That's nice to hear. I found people who would say to me, I'm too scared to see the movie. And I would say, I know it's being sold as a horror movie, but on some level, it's something else. Like, it's not going to scare you in the way I think the trailer made you think it might.
It's like a psychological thriller to me.
Yeah, it's strange, it's bizarre, and a lot of that is well, thank you anyway for the kind words.
Yes.
And it's so nice to hear. It was a long ordeal. I wrote that script many years ago, in this room, in this very room where I'm sitting now. Welcome to my bedroom. I just realized it's probably strange. There's my bed over there. This is the shawl I wear when I do my rituals.
Well,
no. No, thank you. It's been a wild story from start to finish, getting that script from idea to the big screen. I learned so much. It was a long ordeal. My career went so many different directions. I had almost forgotten about the script. And then sure enough, in 2024, Jama came aboard and said, I have a vision for this. And then we ramped up his vision. And what you saw on the screen is a combination of my story and his vision. And yeah, I could talk your ear off about the whole process. It's just fascinating.
That's what we're here for. So for those that are watching, Woman in the Yard is a psychological horror, I would say, film. The movie centers around Ramona, who's portrayed by Danielle Deadwyler. See, I got it.
You are bad with names.
I am. English wasn't my first language. A grieving widow and I'm Middle Eastern, actually.
Amazing. What was your first language?
Arabic.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Cool. So I don't speak it fluently now, but yeah, it's English. Didn't grow up in an English speaking household, so it's just
I see. All right. All is forgiven.
Yeah, I'm telling. It's Nadia lore. It's really bad with names, but she's a grieving widow, single mother, struggling with the aftermath of a car accident that killed her husband and left her with a broken leg. They live in an isolated rural farmhouse with her two children, Taylor and Annie, and then she's having emotional distance and she's overwhelmed by circumstances. This woman in a yard kind of pops out of nowhere, right? Well, if you watch the movie, it's not really out of nowhere, but pops out of nowhere and then just chaos ensues. So I'm trying not to spoil it as much because I do want people to go to the theaters and see it.
Oh, okay. Well, I will do my best to talk about it without spoiling it.
It's
That's
fine.
gonna
It's fine. I'm gonna put a spoiler warning on this banner in case
okay.
we get into spoilers, but
Well, I'll try not to. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning sort of where the idea came from in a way that hopefully I can do without spoiling. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, it started with a question I had in my mind years and years ago, which was, boy, wouldn't it be scary if there was a woman in a yard? And that was just the inception of the idea, how terrifying that would be. That's not exactly true. To be honest with you, it started years ago. I had this image in my head of a stranger sitting in a chair in the middle of nowhere out my yard, right? This is just this image that I had, no joke, for like years and years and years, like 10 years at this point. And it was just like a very strange image. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what to do with it. I was a comedian. I was doing comedy writing. I was performing. And in the back of my head, I always had this image of this strange villain, I could tell, sitting in a chair in the middle of nowhere. And I didn't know what to do with it or what it meant or what it could be. Nothing. Just an image my brain kept feeding me. I tried to sort of deal with it and write a little short story and never really, I don't know, I was never taking it seriously because I was a comedy writer. I was writing on comedy TV shows and going that route. I thought, if only I was a better writer, I could tackle this image in my head and maybe do something with it. But I never had the confidence. And then sure enough, I don't know if you remember what happened in 2020, but there was
yes.
a big global pandemic.
Still feels like it was yesterday, but
Still
yes.
kind of feels like it was yesterday, simultaneously 10 years ago, 1 year ago. Very
Yeah.
strange. Time doesn't matter anymore. And needless to say, I had all this free time to really dive into the idea. And it's just, I finally sent a character out into this yard that I was seeing, and I had this character ask the questions that I was wondering. Who are you? Why are you here? What can I do to get you to go away? And this was my character asking these questions, but me asking this image as well. And that's where I started writing. I had no idea where it would go. I had no idea where it should start. I did no outlining. I did no planning. And I just sort of let the story go from there. And I had all of a sudden this scene where this villain answered honestly and my main character was reacting honestly. And so it was these two parts of my brain just sort of having it out. And all of a sudden I had a nice little scene that is now a form of it in the movie, which is just crazy to think about. And from there, I sort of built around that and ended up writing this story that I didn't realize was so personal to me. And when I got to the big ending that I shouldn't talk about, I realized I realized what the image meant and why I was seeing that. My brain was giving me this image. It was sort of taking this issue I was dealing with and giving it a character.
Mm.
And so I just trusted it and ended up having a script that ended up getting on the blacklist and was bought up by Blumhouse later on. So it was honestly a very cool practice in just trusting your creative self. Don't spend too much time outlining. If you think anybody out there who's listening as a writer, don't worry about outlining. Don't worry about planning. Just dive in, and you can get to know your characters. How you're supposed to end your story. You don't even know your characters yet. So that was a lesson in feature writing. I'd never really written a feature before. I had only been doing comedy. I'd never written horror. I'd never written genre at all. And I just dove in, started writing, sold that script, and that opened up a bunch of doors in the horror space. So have been doing that primarily ever since.
So have you ever been influenced by horror? Like, is this something you grew up, a genre you loved, or just
Absolutely.
Okay. Are there any like prominent movies growing up that stick with you that maybe help influence it a little bit?
God, oh gosh. I mean, yeah, I was always a horror fan. Who
Okay.
isn't?
Yeah.
I guess I always felt like horror was like, you know, the cool kids at the lunch table, and I was like from afar, like, can I sit with you guys? And they were like, you're not cool enough. And then, I sold a script and it was like, okay, maybe we'll let you sit on the end. And so I was like, okay, now I can try to impress you guys. Because I've always been a fan of how devoted like the horror fan base is to all things horror. I find it so impressive, and to, now to be a little bit a part of it seems just like so cool that because yeah, I've always been a fan of the big ones. The Shining, that was like my favorite movie growing up. I saw it way too young. Always been a fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series movies. So yeah, I mean, I loved all things horror, and didn't know I could write that at all. And now here, ever since I sold Yard, that's basically all I've been doing is writing and the horror genre space. So
Interesting.
you never know what. Just try everything. Anybody,
Yeah.
any wannabe writers out there, or any writers in general, just don't be afraid to try a new genre or try a new avenue, because it could be working for you.
Well, comedy and horror are very opposite, but at the same time, they do blend very well. I mean, come to mind like Shaun of the Dead.
Sure.
There's ton Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Like, there's a ton of horror movies that have that comedic element, but there was none in Woman in the Yard. So that's interesting that you come from a comedy background to this. I do want to say hi to the chat really quick because they do have some very nice words. It was a great movie that surprised me, the same as a Blum production. So,
Thanks.
Double Feature said they really enjoyed the film.
Oh, thank you.
Chris said I really enjoyed it. That's
Thank
awesome.
you, Chris.
Double Feature said we thought it was more of a psychological horror about someone battling mental illness and grief. I agree with
Yeah.
this. It comes off that also almost like a not victim's guilt,
Survivors.
survivor's guilt.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
Oh, for
that's
sure. For
go
sure.
ahead.
Well, and I do think it's worth mentioning that what you're seeing, thank you so much for the kind words. It's been kind of a polarizing movie. Some people I know found the subject matter and the ending to be so frustrating that it seems to have kind of divided audiences. And the people who have enjoyed talking about those kinds of things in this context have like reached out to me, strangers, saying, I feel seen, I feel connected to this story because I too struggle with these kinds of things, or I've dealt with this and somebody in my life has dealt with this. And these things mean the world to me, to know that it did find that love in an audience. Big or small as it is, it's an audience regardless. And then at the same time, I know that some people are like, it's not scary. It's like, it's been so polarizing and so cool to see. Genuinely, I think it's so cool to see both sides of the debate, because all in all, I knew all I wanted this to be was an icebreaker to sort of talk about these kinds of subjects, without getting into the spoiler of what it is.
Okay, it's okay.
Like the grief and the depression and mental health issues. Spoiler alert: I deal with those, and I learned very early on that the script could be that icebreaker. And I would go to meetings with executives or whoever who read the script, and all of a sudden I'm having a heart to heart about some mental health issue that they are dealing with, and that I'm dealing with depression. And here we are, two strangers who just met, and the power of this script was allowing us to have this heart to heart about how we deal with things. And I'm glad that the movie can do that just on a bigger scale. That truly means the world. I think it's so cool to see that conversation happening. If anything, that's good. That's I feel very accomplished that somebody is seeing this movie and saying, I'm dealing with an issue. I'm being visited by my own person in the yard, villain in the yard. Maybe it's PTSD, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's stress, or everybody's got something that visits them from time to time. And in my case, it was depression. And this story hopefully tries to capture the awfulness that can put yourself and your family through when it shows up.
Was it always centered around a family in your original drafts, like the beginning of it? Because I know initially you said it was, in a sense, a ghost story that kind of just different and just transformed as drafts continued. Or was it always about something to deal with a survivor's guilt, a family that was dealing with this?
Yeah. Generally, the main difference that I think is worth pointing out. Let me try to tiptoe through this conversation without spoiling anything. But I do think it's worth mentioning that the original draft was called The Man in the Yard. And
Hmm.
why do you say that like that? Why do you?
I feel a man's presence in that type of character, just seeing based off the movie I've seen, okay, it's not based off any scripts, it would be different because I feel women uh internalize things obviously differently than men, and there's just a softness, especially towards the end of it, where the demon or creature, whatever ghost she is, um almost lovingly was trying to help her towards bringing her to the end, and I feel like a man doesn't can't do that. Maybe it might
You're
be,
right.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
and if you want me to tell the story, and again, this is a lesson for all screenwriters who sell their first script. Um, I sold the script, right? I'd never sold a feature before, and it was called The Man in the Yard. And this is because this was the image I was seeing.
Hmm.
A man in the yard. Very
Projecting
creative
probably, yeah.
title, Sam. Really like to give the plot away. There's a man in the yard. And so I wrote this script called The Man in the Yard, and that's because I am, spoiler alert, a man. So the form the form that depression was taking for me was a man. I am
Mhm.
a man. And so that made sense. As we were working on the script, and by the way, it did have the same sort of dynamic, a family, a son, a young daughter, and a mother. This was all sort of there. The survivor's remorse was still there. Um, there was a little bit of a variation in Ramona's guilt. In the original draft, she had been drinking before she got
Mm.
behind the wheel, so there was a little bit more of that involved. Something that I've struggled with was alcoholism. What a fun conversation this is already.
It's
I It was something I was dealing with, and so that was injected into the story, that very personal first draft of what became The Man in the Yard. And then once it sold and we were working on it and we were getting interest from potential filmmakers and potential actors, at one point the conversation was had that in order to tell an authentic story about the subject matter, since it's coming from Ramona essentially, and she's a woman, it should be the woman in the yard.
Mm. Yeah, I don't think a man would, even if it was a man as the main character, like, reverse to me, even if the father had survived, right?
Mhm.
Again, I feel women, I don't know, there's a softness, there's something about it that portrayed as a creature like that, in a sense, that's kinda leading you to the end, works a little bit more. I feel a man couldn't do that maybe. I
You're
don't know, it's just
saying men can't be tender, loving, wonderful friends?
I mean, they can, but I feel like they can't lead you to the afterlife that tenderly.
I'm
Or so
Nadia, I'm gonna lead you to the end someday, and you're gonna eat your words. No, you're completely right. And here's the thing: it was kind of an action thriller originally.
Mm,
Um, I had all these
excuse me.
originally these. Oh, God bless you. I had these action set pieces, and there was not a lot of supernatural to it up front. It was more of a home invasion sort of.
Oh,
The threat
okay.
of this man to this family, this that is missing their patriarch, that was more evident in the first draft. let's not let him in. Let's keep the door locked. We are under threat from a stranger who's could physically harm us.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the story took a bigger turn once it was revealed to be about the things that it's about. And so it was a completely different sort of feel. It was a different thing. And the psychological thriller of it all, the surreal elements, they came way later on when Jama came aboard and had this very specific vision for it. And that was a lot of his love for the story was pulling from making it more Ramona oriented. And to do
Okay.
so, obviously the woman in the yard became who she was. It switched from a man to a woman is what I'm saying. And then we trimmed it down, considerably, finding that sort of sweet spot that he wanted to live in, which was strange and surreal and a true psychological maze that Ramona went on. So it's cool to see it, me as the writer who saw one thing working with a filmmaker who's had a specific vision. It's really cool to see the blend of the two on screen. I think it's really, really fulfilling to see a daydream I've had come to life by someone else's imagination in a way. It's very cool.
Is there anything in the script that didn't get to screen that you wish maybe would have spent a little bit more time on or had put into the movie?
There's a big song and dance number in the first script.
I
Beautiful,
don't think that would work.
massive staircase dancing set piece that I thought worked. Okay, it was
Okay.
no, that's not true. No, I don't think. Again, I don't think it was. I don't. Any screenwriter I know that I talked to, looking for advice on how to my first sale or whatever. Remember, they tell you, remember, it doesn't have to be your story anymore. It has to become something else. And I think that was very smart to remember when it became time to go from the man in the yard to the woman in the yard, because my story got me so far. I had to work with a filmmaker. I had to work with producers and actors who shared their lived experience with the subject matter
Mm-hmm.
in order to make my story and turn it into Ramona's story. And that was the lesson I learned, is you can't be afraid to make changes. You have to sort of embrace the collaboration, and otherwise your story is going to suffer. And I think that The Woman in the Yard, the movie that you're seeing now, it's a combination of so many people's lived experiences with various mental health issues, and clearly, I mean, now it's become a combination of a lot of people's hard work, and so it's fun to see that. I truly can't embrace that enough. And any screenwriters who are, they sell a script and they're worried about their script changing, like, you have to learn to embrace that. You have to work with people. You have to sort of bring in other people's experiences in order to tell a universal story that's authentic to the subject matter. And if it had stayed the man in the yard, it wouldn't be authentic. You know what I mean? So it was cool to sort of do all that in my first time getting a script all the way to the finish line. And now when I do it on other projects, it's more fun because I've been through it. It's fun to sort of collaborate. It's fun to learn. And that's what filmmaking is. The people who make movies are better at it than my brain is. Truly, like the dress that the woman in the yard is wearing, I didn't imagine that. Like, but it's amazing. Whoever came up with that is better than my brain. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to sort of embrace that, because otherwise, you're just going to pick a fight with your director and argue about something, and it's just going to be counterproductive. Just, work with one another. I found it to be really fulfilling. So there's a long-winded way to say, no, not really. I think the story had to become what it was because it needed to be brought to life by so many people. And there's nothing that I think I wish it had gone in there. I mean, I wrote like 15 different drafts of this thing, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It's so fun to think of them all as their own little separate stories, like in a way. And this movie, in The Woman in the Yard, the movie is almost like a different version of it. It's cool. It's cool to sort of work on so many drafts and be able to see them all simultaneously, and then the one that gets made is a different version of that, but in many ways the best version that it could be. I wish I had a good answer besides that, but no, not really. I mean, it's fun. I had another character in there. I guess I had a neighbor character who got the axe that never made it to air, but he was going to show up and try to save him and die or something. Like, it wouldn't have worked. So everyone, Jama had a very specific vision, and I'm glad I listened to him and helped embrace this strange, surreal world he wanted to get to for the story. I think that it was the right way to go.
It was definitely a refreshing movie to watch, because I feel nowadays movies are just, people polarize movies too much nowadays. It's too polarizing, and even it leaks into horror a lot too. And it's just refreshing to go see a movie about a heavy subject matter, to be that done tastefully, and also just a refreshing story, like a new story to it, instead of rehashing things or reboots and all this stuff. It was just a unique tale, and I actually do think it's scary. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's not that scary." I do think it's scary because it deals with things that people deal with all the time. Psychological like depression, anxiety, all this stuff is terrifying because it's
Yeah.
almost unknown, right? You don't, and also the fact that, and we're going to get into spoilers because I do want to talk about the ending. I do. We're going to get
28 minutes to
yes.
just rip the spoiler band-aid off. Let's get into it.
Well, the idea of the afterlife too, right? It's unknown, no matter what religion you are and such. It's unknown to people. So, to me, there's two potential endings to this movie. One, she KO'd herself and she's living in the afterlife, or she's healed and the warm tones are like kind of give that away, that she's healed, she's moved on and such. What's the true ending?
You're gonna hate this answer, but there is no true ending. Of
Like
course.
Aaron.
Right? Like, there isn't one. I have to give credit where credit's due. This is the ending is the brainchild of the director, and I had to help him. I helped him get to this ambiguity that he was going for, that is maybe frustrating, but I know it's not some ending that's ambiguous for the sake of being ambiguous. I think that there's some real value in that ambiguity for the subject matter. And what I mean is, I walked out of the movie seeing it, I wasn't on set, so I got to sort of experience it for the first time as a movie.
I was gonna ask that. Wow.
It was
Okay.
so I got to visit set one day. That was cool, but I wasn't involved. And but what I'm trying to say is, I think that there's some value in the ambiguity, because some people walk out of that movie, and I was with them, being like, "Oh, so glad she didn't do it. That is so great." And then other people are like, "That was so depressing. I can't believe she did it." And I think that they pulled it off.
Yeah. Yeah, because my husband and I are divided on it, even of like what happened.
I think to his credit, he wanted that ambiguity to sort of drive people nuts, and I think he has. So credit to him to sort of nail that. But truth be told, I mean, if you want my opinion, just as a fan of the movie, do you want to know? Can I say
Yeah,
like what?
yeah, go ahead.
I see hope.
Okay.
I see hope. And maybe it's the fact that I make, I write and I'm an artist as well in a form. But when I see that finished painting at the end of the movie, I know that that's how people take their depression and use it, because that's
Mm,
what I did. That's what I did to write this first draft. I was depressed and I didn't know what to do with it, and I made a piece of art out of it. And that's the same thing that Ramona's done, symbolically, of course. She made a piece of art out of her depression. She got her strength back. She absorbed her shadow, and instead of using it to end things, she used it for inspiration. And that's how I take the movie. That's how I take the ending. But of course, there is no right answer. But that's how I always see it. And that painting, I think, is a good way to describe it. And I think a lot of creative people can feel that way too. That you can take some of the darkest times in your life, I know from experience, and you can use them to make something out of it.
mhm. I'm on the opposite end because of clues such as, like, the R being backwards on her painting, just the color tones of it almost heavenly, right?
Sure.
You're in the afterlife, the dog too,
The dog,
surviving
the
and all
dog.
this stuff. But I was also divided, I don't know if you saw Heretic last year or recently, same thing, where the ending, you don't know if she survived or not because there's
She sees
clues.
that butterfly or not? Yeah.
The sound goes completely silent and such. So, yeah, I like movies that do this because it allows people to have discussions about it, and you are coming from different
Agreed.
backgrounds. Like, if you've had depression or anxiety, you're gonna look at this movie differently than someone who hasn't, right? Or survivor's guilt too. Whoever has been in situations like that where
Yeah.
they've maybe even been in a car accident and survived and was the only one. So this opens up the discussion of mental illness, I think, and things that are in that umbrella, but tastefully, and allows people to, maybe they can't talk about it, just bring it up, but when they take their family to go see a movie like this, it allows that door to be cracked open and
Like
have
I
those
was
discussions.
hoping,
Yeah.
like that icebreaker, as long as so there you are, you're having this conversation about the ending. Did she, didn't she? What did these things mean? I think that that is going to be an easy way for anybody who's needs to talk about something,
Mhm.
again, hopefully, to have that chance. I'm seeing signs of hope. You know why? Because I've experienced it. I just opened up to you. I just opened up to all your fans here about my own experiences. And so hopefully on that car ride home, somebody's saying, okay, I didn't see hope because of how I've been feeling. This is why I took those signs to mean something, maybe, you know, a little darker, a little more depressing, or the alternative. And it gives people a chance to sort of have that conversation. And again, that was my goal for the project the whole time, to open up that door and to be that icebreaker. So hopefully, like what you're saying is true, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and as far as the backwards R goes, I remember. I think that it's well, if you remember earlier in the movie, she's furious with her daughter for writing
Yes.
backwards R, right? And she's furious at her for making a mistake, and by yelling at her young daughter for making a mistake like that, she's yelling at herself for making a mistake that led to the death of her husband. So she can't forgive mistakes. She cannot forgive even the tiniest mistake, a backwards R. And so I see the backwards name as her learning forgiveness.
Oh, see, that changes the perspective for me a little bit on that.
I'm just a fan of the movie. Again, I'm not, just because the script is something that I wrote, like,
Mhm.
don't take it as, you know, it's not scripture what I'm saying. Like that's just how I feel. That's how I always felt writing and then seeing it is she's learning to forgive mistakes. She's gone through this crazy, awful ordeal, and it's changed her. That is often reflective in how people sign their names in a way, who they are, who they're become, they become somebody else. And that is all just reflective, nice pun, in how she signs her name on the bottom of her paintings now. She's a different person and she's learned to forgive herself. This experience has sort of changed her. Again, this is all just stuff I think, and it doesn't really matter what I think. It's everybody's experience is their own. You were negative, or did you have a?
I'm pretty dark. I'm a dark person. I usually go the dark end.
Clearly, I wrote the most depressing script ever.
I don't know. It just maybe the way the film was edited or paced, and especially how harsh the cut was from her about to end it to this like hopeful and again I bring back like the warm tones that were used towards that end and the painting and the dog being alive. To me it kind of symbolized the afterlife, right? It's just her suffering is over and she's now in a place of peace. Especially since there's the scene in the movie where the woman in the yard is like showing her photos of her children without her as they grow up and how successful they are and that they're in a good place without her. So I don't, but now seeing, I can understand where the backwards arc could be a nod to healing, to that she's letting things go, she's forgiving herself for things. I don't know, but I'm also with Heretic. I thought she died.
See, I thought she survived, and then I thought, if I'm remembering Heretic correctly, it was her friend visiting her as a butterfly. Spoiler for Heretic.
Yeah. Oh, that movie's been out. I covered that movie. Yeah, that movie's been out. That movie's been out.
Just making sure.
The great thing about it is that like this movie, that movie, it allows people to interpret it. It's not just laying the cards out on the table for audience. And I think that's what movies nowadays suffer a lot for, is that they have to tell you everything that is going on down to the T. You need to know even lore about creatures and ghosts and stuff, instead of letting the audience use their imagination and fill those gaps in. Which I think makes for better storytelling, in my opinion. But
I think that again, that's credit to Jama's vision. And he wanted to embrace that sort of uncomfortable ambiguity throughout. I remember when I first wrote the script, I had sort of established this world that had rules and a villain who was a monster that could do different things and had weaknesses and all these things, and he saw a different version. He saw a different thing that was more, as I mentioned, more about Ramona, more let's think of this whole thing. He almost wanted this whole story to say, could this just be inside of Ramona's head, different versions of herself, and that was all his sort of influence to tell that specific story. And I think it was effective in that regard. My endings were always, whew, we won, we are good, let's go home and go to sleep. And knowing that the villain would come back someday, so I had that someday thing, it'll happen, it'll return, like depression always does. You just got to be ready in the day. And this ending was, like you're saying, just better. Like, it's just better. Let's be honest. It gives people, like we were saying, that conversation starter, that ambiguity that I think was the way to go. Yeah. And then I know that can be frustrating to people, and people who've reached out to me be like, what was the ending? What'd she do? And I'm like, I don't know. I have my opinion, but it's up to you. You're in charge of deciding how you feel about it. And that was Yeah, that I got to give credit where credit's due. That was that sort of uncomfortable ambiguity that the director wanted, I think, was true to the subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if it was such more of a straightforward ending, it would not be so polarizing to audience members as well, and be able to have these discussions. I
Yeah.
will ask, was there ever a point in the script that the same actress would play both Ramona and the woman in the yard?
Never was. I remember that being suggested at one time,
Mm.
and it got, if I remember correctly, the idea got shut down because we wanted that would just be so clear what's going on. And
Yeah.
I know that the woman wears this veil, but that was added pretty later on, if I'm correct. And I remember somebody pitching that idea and saying, I don't know how we could get away with anything if it's clear that it's the same actor, right? Like, be tricky. And so we knew, it couldn't, it would become a completely different story. Like, it's so obvious, so yeah, short answer, no, not really.
Okay. I always thought of it because if it's a projection of, in a sense, her demons,
Yeah,
her, but at the same time, if this individual is maybe somebody who caters people to the afterlife, like in mythology and such,
yeah.
it would have to be somebody different or look different.
Yeah,
Oh.
and I think on another level, I originally the original version, the man in the yard, it was almost sort of the not necessarily mythology, but I guess I imagined him as the Grim Reaper
Mhm.
in a different form that day, right? The scary old man in a suit who's, creeping out your house. Like, that was what I had imagined, that he was Grim Reaper had sort of decided to really torture this poor woman who I'm gonna sit here in this chair all day, this chair I brought from out of nowhere, and mess with him. And then as time went on, it sort of became a different thing. The woman in the art is entirely different character, and that was fun to sort of write both versions. Again, I'm very proud that the story is no longer about me, and it's about Ramona and
Mhm.
Ramona's story and Ramona's struggle. And this was all, I think, authentic to her. All these changes, you know, and I think it makes, if your character is a little less concrete, it gives you more room to, as we're saying, figure stuff out for your own on your own, and be frustrated, and be confused, right? Like, there's fun, there's value in that. And I think that you know, the current version of it, the movie, I think nails that pretty well, which is fun.
Is there any talks of a sequel or
Oh,
this
there's Woman in the
franchise?
Yard 2, she's in the back. Woman in the Yard 3, she's in the side
Well,
yard.
I have to ask because I mean it is, I know it's polarizing with audiences, but again, I think that's a good thing because it allows you to have a discussion. If everybody hates one particular movie that's out, there's nothing to talk about it. It just kind of kills water cooler discussion. So having something like this, heavy subject matter, being as successful as it is there talks of like maybe a franchising it or sequel in it?
Well, let's think about this. If that ever did happen, I think that would give the ending a pretty concrete answer.
True. Or you could take the concept of the woman in the yard, but a different family or a different circumstances. And she's just always someone there to kind of rush you, like help you to the other side. I don't know.
And
I'm not a writer. So I'm
now
not
I can honestly say I don't know. I have not heard anything. I don't know if while I think I'm very proud of the movie, and I think it has definitely found its audience. I don't know how successful it'll be in the financial sense. I'm just not
yeah.
sure, and I don't know how those things work. I that would be awesome. I mean, of
Or
course,
would
like,
you rather tackle a different subject matter in a horror setting?
Oh, don't get me wrong. Ever since I wrote that story and I realized the power and creativity and how it can be so therapeutic, every script I've written ever since has sort of been a new thing I'm terrified of, right? Like finding a new thing that I'm scared of and diving in and writing a script about it. And any script that's gotten anywhere and had any success was started in the same way that I started writing Yard. I had a vision or a scenario or a character or something. Why is my brain showing me this? I'm going to trust it. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to start writing. And on multiple occasions, those have given me very cool scripts that have gotten places, that get set up with producers that now have directors and things attached to them, just because I dove in and didn't know what I was scared of and learned.
Mhm.
So Yard was that first lesson. Don't be afraid to dive in without outlining or anything. But as far as the sequel goes, I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything. That would be cool if everybody could sign a petition and get one going. That would be fun.
I'll sign it. I mean, like I said,
Put a
this is
woman anywhere. Where else could she be?
yeah,
In the
garage,
She could be in the garage. She could be on the porch.
your work.
She could, she can do whatever she wants. It's 2025. Women can be anywhere, as we all
Yeah.
know.
Is horror gonna be something you just focus on from this point? Do you prefer to write for it versus comedy?
I
Because
love writing both. Yeah,
you have a very unique background, writing just straight comedy and then to have your first feature be a horror movie.
it was again. If you have an idea, try it out. See how it
Mhm,
goes. But yeah, I love writing comedy. I love being in writers' rooms. I had a lot of fun writing on a few Netflix shows, and that's the extroverted part of my brain working. And then I'll come home and sit in the darkness and write a very depressing story. That's the introverted sort of part of my brain working. So should always try to keep both working at the same time. So yes, I developed a comedy feature with a comedian friend of mine. So always trying to keep both muscles working at the same time. But I really think that the horror genre is so powerful. You can give a face and a name and a characteristic to something you're scared of, like I did for Yard. I took my depression and made it into a character named the Man in the Yard, who then, of course, became Ramona's monster, the woman in the yard. And that was so rewarding that, God, I'm not sure any other genre where you can sort of do that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. As long as it wasn't Spider in the Yard, I was gonna see it. If it was Spider in the Yard, I'm out. I
Spiders
don't
in
do
the yard.
spiders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a good little bit if the woman in the yard, that's her one fear, is she's scared of spiders and she's just like sitting out there and a spider crawls on her dress and she freaks out. That'll be in the comedy version. We'll do that one.
Last year I think there was 2 major spider movies that came did not see them. Will not see them. I'm out.
Wait, what movies were those?
Infested, and then there was another one
Oh, yeah.
that, was just I mean, I love horror. I worked in Hollywood as well. I did, about 10 years doing special effects makeup. Prior to that, worked in haunted houses, grew up with it, love it. Like, it is my favorite genre. That's why I started this channel.
Love,
And I look at it as an umbrella that there's just subgenres. Everybody
yeah.
thinks, "Oh, you have to have gore and like a clown chasing you or something to that effect." But no, horror can be psychological. It can be funny. It could have action. There's tons of it that can be mixed in. Sting, thank you, double feature. That was the other. Um, yeah,
Sting.
won't do it. Won't do it. That's my line. That and Final Destination. I'm out.
You don't
I'm a
like,
millennial.
oh,
And, I don't drive behind things anymore, so,
yeah.
yeah.
It's so funny that one set piece has ruined like an entire generation of
Yes.
to drive behind log trucks.
Nope.
Um, I completely I hear you. I love the horror genre and this was definitely, a trip into the psychological thriller. Um, and in writing this movie, I sort of, as I explained, sort of started it as a almost like a home invasion movie
Mhm.
action thriller. monster movie thing. And now it became, along that process of development and new drafts and working with the director, I got to write almost like a new genre.
Mhm.
Take that story and make it a psychological surreal thriller. So it was almost a cool lesson in learning that the scripts and your stories that you're writing, try a different twist on it. Maybe it'll work in a different way. So that was cool. Again, I can't give enough credit to everybody that got that script in their hands, Woman in the Art in their hands, and sort of breathed this life into it. That what you're seeing, I found that to be so rewarding. Some screenwriters I know really struggle with that. Oh my gosh, they changed my script. I hate that. And my favorite parts of Woman in the Yard, the movie, are the things that like I didn't come up with. I love it. I think it's
Really?
so cool.
What
Yeah.
which one? What give an
Like, for
example?
instance, there's parts throughout the movie where like if Ramona's angry, if you look behind her, there's like a shadow
Yeah.
of the woman.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did not know that. I love that. I think
Oh,
that
yeah, there
was
was a great play with light and shadow in this entire movie.
all
Uh,
that. All that was just sort of I don't know whose idea it was. I wasn't there, but they added all these things in there that I think are amazing reflections. I watched the movie a second time and I saw that there's one scene where Ramona's talking and having a conversation with Taylor, and in the reflection of her, she's just looking at the camera. It's
I
completely wow, well, that's terrifying. I love that stuff. I didn't write that. I love that this story gets to sort of exist and people get to breathe their own life into it. I'll even say that there's like lines of dialogue that I didn't write, and I asked, because one scene that is so heartbreaking to me is when Ramona is putting a Band-Aid on Annie's foot, and she says, I'm sorry that happened, and accidents happen, and Annie says, like the car crash that when Daddy crashed
Mhm.
the car, and then they have this conversation where she says, "Do you still want to live here now that Daddy's dead?" And if I'm remembering correctly, that's where the scene ended on the page with Ramona not having
Oh.
an answer. And then in the movie, Danielle, who's like the best actor ever, she says, "I don't know," in this like heartbreaking way. And I think it's like my favorite line in the whole movie because it sort of captures the to be or not to be of it all. I don't know. I'm not sure if I want to keep living here, if I want to keep living in general. And she answers it in such a subtle, amazing way because she's seriously an incredible actor. And so I asked the director about that after I saw the movie. I was like, where did that come from? And he said, like, they just on the day, like
Just kept rolling and just let her
apparently some form of that. And I find that stuff to be so wonderful because it's a reminder that this is all just a big collaborative effort. Um, and even the ending, the actual final climax was I mean, we had versions of similar things, but the way that it is now is a combination of the brainchild of Jama and then the two actors who are in the scene. They felt this, so they had been living these characters. This felt honest and genuine to them, and I would never have been able to write that because I wasn't living that with them. And so anyway, I think anybody who's out there who's listening, who's a writer, do not be afraid to embrace change because it means you're collaborating and you have to sort of find all those things together. I truly am so I feel so grateful it ended up in everybody's hands that cared so deeply about it to make it into what it was because it's better than what my brain had imagined or had written on the page even. It's so cool. It's so cool. You have to collaborate. You have to.
That's I agree with you 100% because I think it's interesting, and please don't take offense, like, as a man writer writing a woman's character, but it comes both characters coming across
Yeah.
with the femininity of them and and I think that comes from the actresses and the director and being able to collab all this together.
Yeah.
Uh, it
Especially from no, I mean, let's just call it out. People see this movie with an all black cast and look
Mhm.
at it and see the pastiest ginger of all time saying something's not adding up. And I'm like, I know it seems odd, but the people that brought it to life, they have lived experiences that are authentic to the cat.
Mhm.
And those adjustments were handled with care and handled appropriately. And it's just a lesson again in let your script become something else.
Mhm.
Let it become the main character story. It's going to have to. So just let people help you bring that to life and listen to them and collaborate. And when they say, "Hey, this is not authentic to how this would happen," say, "You're right. What would be more authentic?" And I'm glad I listened because I think that the authenticity of this situation is hopefully on the screen, and I think that that's all the credit to the people who brought it to life.
Now, were you always had written in a black family for this, being a man of ginger complexion?
A man
Was
of
it
a man of ginger complexion.
Yes.
I had never written any this
So, it
no,
just I mean, it worked very well, and to me, it just especially Danielle, she's a phenomenal actress in this,
I
just I
mean,
could see her pain and her suffering just come through her
when they sent
facial
her the
expressions.
script when they sent her the script, I was like, "There's no chance that she would wanna do this movie. She's so good." And then she did, and she came
Yeah.
on as the executive producer. And then, I had never listed at any point where the story really took place or the races of the characters. No, none of that was ever there. It sort of became what it was organically once Danielle signed on and wanted it to be about her. And she breathed a lot of life into it. A lot of her art, by the way, is seen in the movie. Uh, so there's
Oh,
any art you're seeing, maybe not all of it. I know that
okay.
some of her art is definitely 100% in the story in the movie. Um, no, so I never had written anything in the script that dictated much about the characters themselves or anything. The cool thing about the story is it could take place anywhere in the
Mhm.
world as long as it was isolated, right? And that because everybody can experience depression and
I
things
think
like
so, but I think her being a black woman, though, adds a layer to the story, uh, that comes from my perspective, right? I'm Middle Eastern, so I'm not, my perspective on this as a woman of black women always having to be the stronghold of the family, like always having I don't want to say stereotype because I have mixed sisters, I have a black stepfather, I have family members, but I know that it's always just comes across that they always have to put others first. They can never put themselves first. And I think it just adds a layer to the story and the grief, losing her husband and then having to keep everything together. Maybe I'm just maybe this is just spewing out wrong, but,
no,
I like it. I
no,
liked it. I think it just yeah.
again, I'm so glad it ended up in the hands of everybody that got it that it whose hands it ended up in. And I think a lot of that, what you're describing, I have to give credit to producer Stephanie Elaine, who was very hands on with me and helping me make sure that these things were present. And
Mhm,
she's a black woman, and she could share these lived experiences with me and say, I think that it would be more authentic again if the story had this element, or we talked about this and we adjusted this, and again, it was beneficial to Ramona's story. I can't stress enough. My story went away, and Ramona's story was born from so many people, different
mhm.
people's sort of experiences with the subject matter. I'm not a mother,
That's another thing too, yeah, and especially
too, and
being
people,
black mother, to be honest, in especially nowadays in this world too. They're never put first. They always put their family first. They're always the ones to eat last in a sense, and you could see that come through as, the person that is the decision maker in the family is gone now, and now she has to be the one to kind of pick up the pieces, but she doesn't wanna be here too.
right. And these were all things that on these wonderfully deep Zoom calls we were having with the team, again, the whole process was very therapeutic to everybody. And so I got to give credit to all of these wonderful, talented people who saw this story and knew how to inject what it needed to bring
Mhm.
it to the authentic story that you're describing. I give credit to all of them for holding my feet to the fire in a way to make sure that it was the right story. And I think that, I applaud them for doing so. It was very educational in so many ways in order to get it to where it needed to be. So yeah, they rule. I'm what a talented group of people got to make a cool movie that I got to see. Yeah, very proud of it. Very cool, and I owe them a lot. And I've told them so. I thank them continually for making sure it was an authentic story about mental health, and to do so meant cutting out that neighbor character who I wanted to have in there. He's gone, and just making it real, making it feel, raw and sometimes uncomfortable, right? So yeah, all credit it goes to the people who brought this to life.
And they definitely put a win in Blumhouse's book for me on this one.
Oh,
This will definitely be in my top for 2025. Took me a second there. I'm like, we're in 2025.
right? I mean, who knew 2025 was going to happen? It was just 2020 a year ago. It feels like.
Yeah, or a week ago, right? Before we leave, there's a couple questions that were landed. Someone wanted to ask you, and I don't know if you have experience with this. How do you feel about anime and manga being more successful than Western entertainment?
I wish I had any insight. All I can say is that as the anime things I've enjoyed with my fullest heart. Like I enjoy them so much. But I don't have much experience in that, besides the fact that maybe people just love art. I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you think? What is your thought?
Uh, have you seen Solo Leveling?
Mm-mm.
I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. It is probably going to be the anime of the year. Probably the anime of the last 5 years, if being completely honest. I think
What's it
I
called?
think a Solo Leveling. It's a Korean anime that or Korean manga that got turned into an anime. Both seasons are out on Amazon Prime through Crunchyroll. So, um,
I will
it's a
watch.
very simple hero story. There's very simple. It's just, the underdog wins at the end, but for some reason it just works. It just works and people are cheering for him and such. So, it's very good. I don't know. I think uh anime is able to tell stories in a way that doesn't have to insert things, I guess, based on the culture that it's coming from. Where I think Western animation, one, doesn't look that good, in my opinion.
You're that sounds to something that makes sense.
Like, I look at the what got released today, Devil May Cry, right? I have no background in Devil May Cry. I'm gonna watch the original anime. Uh, my husband pulled out the DVDs. I was like, okay. I was like, all right, let's do this. But I look at the animation style. I'm like, it's too computerized almost. I don't
Mhm.
know. I watched Prince of Egypt earlier today. I was watching it and it's so beautiful, drawn
Gorgeous
and it's
movie.
gorgeous. Holds up
Gorgeous.
so well. Where I feel the more computerized animation is not gonna hold up as
That
well in the
much we
long.
can agree with, because
Yeah.
you will watch any movie that Disney made in the '50s, and I think
Yeah.
I would enjoy that more than I would the original Toy Story. No offense to the original Toy Story, it's wonderful, but the art doesn't age. It
Yeah,
looks,
this yeah.
yeah, like the hand
Like
drawn
Shrek.
Shrek. Yeah, everybody got mad about Shrek. Get ready. By the way, get ready for the day when there's a live action Shrek. Everyone's gonna lose their minds. It's just gonna be awful.
I'm ready for it. I know it was a Broadway show for a while.
Everybody reacted when they just made him a little more realistic. Someday, you count my words for it. There will be a live action Shrek, and everyone's gonna.
And he will be played by Jack Black.
It'll be fun. I think you'd crush it. Actually, now I'm excited. Yeah, I think that there's something to the hand drawn
I
care.
have this discussion about special effects too, practical effects versus CGI. Someone
No
who comes
question.
from a practical effects background, it ages so well, such as like The Thing. I was on a show to talk about that. That is my number one movie of all time.
Up there.
Happy,
Yeah.
yeah. John
No,
Carpenter got his star today. Finally,
give him
about
credit. Yeah.
about time. But the practical effects hold up so well versus something that is CGI blood annoys me so much. To me, I feel it shows that there's no creativity
Yeah.
in the work where studios are like, "Oh, we'll just CGI it. Oh, we'll just green screen it."
And I feel
One of
that way about some monsters in movies.
Mhm.
I won't throw any movie or TV show under the bus, but you can tell in some situations in various movies where they just didn't have it figured out yet. They shot the movie and they digitally put in a monster later on to sort of be the
It
come on.
just doesn't, yeah.
Have the same, you can't, your
Eh,
eye knows the difference. So I think that what you're saying, we're in agreement. I think what you're saying sort of applies to the question that was asked. I think that there's a level of care.
just to put into it, just a movie that came out in the last 5 years, the Dungeons& and Dragon Honor Among Thieves movie. I'm a
Oh yeah,
D&D
yeah,
player.
yeah. What'd you
Okay.
think of that?
Loved it because
Me too. Great.
they're on set, they're on location, they use puppetry, I mean, there's a little bit of CGI in it and
A little bit.
practical effects, but it looks so good. It looks
I'm a
good.
defender of that movie. I know it wasn't very successful, right? Like
No,
it wasn't.
the marketing, the trailer for it. I will tell you, as somebody who's plays Dungeon and Dragon, who's been waiting for a movie to come out, that's the heart of it. Not no shade to the other movies; they're a little rough. Uh, it was marketed wrong. It was marketed too cheesy in a sense, and then word of mouth had people go see it because I almost didn't go see it just on a whim. Was like, I got nothing going on, I'll go see it. It became like one of my favorite movies.
I have not laughed that hard in a theater.
It like
When his hologram is malfunctioning,
face.
might be the hardest I've laughed in a theater in 10 years. I truly believe that. Big fan of that movie. And it's just, again, it goes back to people making things with care. It found its
Instead of a
audience.
big green screen
Instead of a big
background.
green screen, and I think on some level that applies to Yard too. Like, again, I understand that it's having this sort of polarizing effect on audiences who were expecting, like you're saying, the marketing was maybe, oh, it's going to be a haunted house movie, and it became something else. It became something a little bit different. But it, again, like you're saying, I think it did find its audience and to people that it connect with, just like Dungeons and Dragons did, just like any piece of art that you put your heart and soul into, it'll find somebody that it connects with. And that's sort of what's the point of all of it in general, you know? I mean,
Is last question and we'll wrap up. Is there a movie you're looking forward to that will be releasing this year? Is there something as a moviegoer you're hyped for?
gosh, let's see. You know what I'm excited for? I'm excited for Drop.
I am too. I love Christopher Landon. Oh, I
And
love
I'm a huge fan of the screenwriters who are wonderful people, and they're going to crush this one. I'm very excited. Jill Jacobs Roach is a wonderful, amazing writer and friend of mine. I have to just come out and say it. She's the best, and this movie I think is going to blow people's heads off. It's so exciting, and yeah, I'm excited for that. It's surreal. I'll just say we actually know each other from way back when. Jill Jacobs Roach and I, who she wrote Drop, we went to school together. And so this has
that's
been
cool.
really cool to see. I'll drive down the street, I'll see a little bill, a poster for Woman in the Yard, and then 2 streets later, a poster for Drop. It's just like, how amazing. We went to school together. And so I know this movie is just gonna blow people away.
I'm now even more excited to see it.
Yeah, I would be too. It's great. And so I'm excited for that. What else is coming out? Gosh,
I will say the big contenders for the summer blockbuster will be Jurassic Park, Superman, Fantastic Four, but I'm in the vein of I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yep.
That's going to be interesting to see that be rebooted.
One of my all-time favorites, the original, the OG. Yeah, that takes the cake. I think that's probably the best. I like that better than any of the other slasher movies that came out around, the late 90s. I think that's the best one.
I will say I'm looking forward to Sinners this month as
Oh,
well.
Sinners, absolutely. Yes,
Yeah.
I came very unprepared for this question, but yes,
It's okay. It's okay.
talk about a trailer that sort of takes you on a wild ride. Also, how am I supposed to how are men supposed to compete with two Michael
Michael
B's?
B. Jordan's.
My wife's gonna leave me for this movie. Son of a gun! Like two Michael B's. What are we supposed to do? How can we compete with that? No, that movie looks good. Yeah, that's fun. That's exciting. Drop Sinners. When does
Until Dawn as well. It's
on
gonna
that
be
looks
out.
fun.
Yeah.
When does Zach Krieger's movie come out? Does that come out this year?
I think that's a 2026 or
2026?
2027 slate. I would be surprised if it's 2026 with
Yeah.
Robert Eggers um werewolf movie next year.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Where uh Sinners is definitely one I've been intrigued by,
Yeah, that
uh
looks
mostly because the teaser to what the last trailer is completely different. And I think this is an issue for one, I think trailers show too much. I think trailers show too much nowadays. I think you gotta just tease people a little bit and then
well.
let
Can I
people
ask
make
your
up their mind.
opinion? Then
Yeah.
I actually would. I'm curious. I remember when the second trailer for Woman in the Yard came out. A lot of the people were saying they showed too much.
Yeah, they do. In my opinion, they did.
They
But
did.
after seeing it, what was in the trailer is not the movie, right? It's just I feel to me this concept of like trailers being more than a minute should just go away. Like I
Yeah.
don't need the whole movie, or especially with horror. The
Right.
problem a lot of horror has is they put the scarier parts in the trailer because they want people to go see it, right? You show this, and then when you get to the movie,
You've
there's
seen
nothing that's
everything.
surprising. Yeah, you've seen like the important stuff. So,
That's
um,
that's true. It's a conundrum for marketers. I don't. I think that's a tough job. I don't know.
yeah,
It's a science that I think I would be bad at because I would be like, keep it totally a mystery, but then like, how do you get butts in the seats? I don't know.
that's true. That's a discussion happening now about how long movies should stay in theaters, how movie theaters trying to get butts in the seats and stuff. And my opinion is we should bring back shame because when I went to go see Woman in the Yard, somebody put their dirty Crocs on the table where people like put their popcorn and food. And my opinion is you bring back shame. That's how you get people back in the seats. Stop.
That much we can agree on. I like shaming people. Yeah, let's bring it back as a whole, as a society. More
Stop
shame.
using your phone, stop like all this. Like, why are you paying for a ticket to see a movie in theaters? Just wait for it to come digitally if you want the comforts of your house. So
Yeah,
I like going to movies. I will always love going to movies. Get my little popcorn
just
drink, go
don't put your Crocs on the table.
table where people put their
People,
food.
that's for people.
Shame.
That's for popcorn. Yeah,
Uh
agreed. Agreed.
But thank you so much, Sam, for joining me today. Is there anything upcoming other than obviously, yes, everybody watching this, please go see Woman in the Yard. Let's support movies that are good movies, keep them in theater longer. Let's get this movie, up there in the box office. So, with that being said, is there anything you're working on that you're looking forward to, something you want to plug?
Um, yes, please go see Woman in the Yard and love it or hate it. I like that it's been so divisive. I think that's wonderful. It opens up this conversation. Please and feel free to reach out to me because I've had such a really cool time having these heart to heart with people over just social media or Instagram DMs of just like getting to have, like I'm saying, this
Mhm.
icebreaker has sort of allowed people to sort of open up. And I was so, I know it's Ramona's story, but there's still this piece of vulnerability that started the thing that has allowed people to open up to me because I felt comfortable to open up to people. And so that's been so rewarding. No matter what happens. I mean, that's what it's all about is having that conversation with somebody, that needs to have it. But as far as anything else goes, like I'm packing, we're just trying to get a couple of movies to the finish line, but no, nothing coming out anytime soon. Um, it's the getting a feature made business is really hard.
Yes. Yeah.
So I've been keeping busy on a handful of different projects, inching along. And once I do have the next one, ready to go, we're hoping to shoot this one project come the fall. But that's all really I
Oh,
think I can say.
okay.
Um,
Is it horror related?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I'll come back on, you know, if
Absolutely. You are more than welcome to come back on anytime.
it's
Even if
like,
you just
yeah.
want to come back on to talk about your favorite horror movie. I do that as well with
Would love
creators. So,
to. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Wait, let me know if you ever want to talk about a certain, you know, because my favorite scary movies. I don't know if you've ever seen Possession.
Yes. Which one? With Sam Neill?
Yeah.
Yes. I did a double feature of that with First Omen. And at first I was like, I don't know if I like Possession. And then it just stuck with me over time. And I grew to it was in my top 20 now at this point. I recommend it all the time.
One of my all-time favorite movies ever, and any movie that I didn't know nothing going into watching that movie a few
Yeah.
years ago, and any time a movie starts with creature effects by in the opening credits, that's when you know you're
Oh, so you're a creature monster fan in a sense?
oh, of course, but
Mhm.
I just love the fact that
That's the
that's
oh,
practical
yeah.
effect, right? So, yeah, big fan of that movie. Yeah, happy to have you, happy to come back anytime. That would be a
Oh,
blast.
yeah, I would love to have you come on and talk about Possession. I want somebody to talk about with this movie. It's just been living in my brain, but,
Oh, it's a wonderful movie, yeah.
yeah. As for myself, for my audience, tomorrow we're continuing Stranger Things rewatch with the panel. We're going to be talking about season 2, episode 3 and 4. And then Tuesday, I'm actually going to have director Mike Levy on, who did Stream of last year. And he's also been a producer for the Terrifier series. So he's joining me to talk about Stream and stuff. So
Amazing.
again, Sam, thank you for your time today and such. It was great having you on. Love the conversation and such. And to my audience, too, you guys were awesome in the chat. Until next time, as always, everyone,